Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Pop Anime Comics here from PopAnimeComics.com and the Pop Anime Comics Lounge podcast. And my Instagram is Pop Anime Comics. And for those who follow me on Instagram, you know that I am a big comic book and a big Pop Funko collector. And so I figured this time I made a bunch of videos breaking down my collection, showing you what I have in my collection, going through the high and low prices of a particular Pop Funko, as well as estimated value, give a little bio on that Pop Funko and a little background information, as well as trends surrounding that Pop Funko. Now, before we dive into this episode's Pop Funko, I do want to reiterate and keep my promise here that I said there'd be no affiliate links unless you, the viewers, benefit. And I so happen to have one from FunkoShop.com, and they are backed and they are owned by Pop Funko, and they are their official website and selling store. And so the way it works is that there's a link in the description down below, and there's a code beneath it. So copy paste that code and click on that link, and it'll bring you right to their store. And while on their website, you can browse for new Pop Funkos. They have some exclusives. They have some other products they sell relating to them and what they do as a company. So they make a lot of cool toys, a lot of cool figures besides Pop Funko. And once you put that all in your cart, you at checkout, you could then type in, paste that code in, and since you click that link, with that code, it'll actually activate a 10% off coupon for you to use, and you get 10% off your order. So you have to use both. It's very simple. Feel free to use it. It's an affiliate link, so you get 10% off, and I get a small commission, which helps to support this channel and what I do here. And so please use it because it's a great way how to get 10% off while building your collection. Now, having said all that, I want to dive into this episode's Pop Funko, which is Prince Robot the Fourth. So obviously we're on a Saga binge here because I love Saga. I love the entire comic. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful comic book that was created by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. And so he's sort of the enemy / sort of an ally. So he's tasked with basically eliminating Marco and Alana's kid, and then because they're on opposite sides of the war, and they conceived a child together. And that child is more or less a half-breed between two groups, and he just wants to kill them because he wants to get back to his wife and back to his son, and his son gets kidnapped, his wife gets killed, and then he becomes an ally to Marco and Alana to sort of end this war or escape as much of the war as possible while raising his son, who he's reunited with after a while. And so that's what's going on with him without giving too much away. That's what's going on with Prince Robot. And so we get a lot of fun stuff happening with him over the course of the 9 arcs that are so far out there. And obviously Saga's on hiatus right now. Now, having said all that, and I don't want to ruin anything else because that should give enough here, because Saga's a really good story, and if you haven't read it, I recommend you do. Now, where this thing gets complicated is that this is the very basic version. So there's a few versions of this. There's a Emerald City Con version of it. There's a few other versions of it that are pretty cool. So there's one with like a cracked screen, and those obviously fetch a lot more money than this one because this is the basic one. This is the everyday average Joe one, if you will. So this one's a bit rough because it's a $10 Funko, which is $10 is the average for a Pop Funko and how much it costs. So much like the Lion Cats, much like a bunch of other Saga Pop Funkos, these are very, very new on the market. They came out in 2018, and so they're new. They're not that hard to find. You could still find some of them if you know where to look in certain stores because they didn't really sell through all that well. And so it's rough. I'm just giving everybody a heads up here. The low for this is $4. The high for this is $4. And it's estimated... I'm sorry. The estimated value is $4. The high and the low are $6. I stand corrected here. And so that's where it's priced. So it's a bit rough when you're buying a Pop Funko for $10 and then its value is $4, or estimated value is $4. And part of that, much like the other sagas that are out there, is that there's just not enough data on it. It's new. And so there's not much out there on what it actually is valued at, because when you don't have much data, or people aren't reporting it, or people aren't claiming it, or people aren't, involved in the database of PopFunkoPriceGuide.com, which has a database that engages with people and people voluntarily submit what they have and what they don't have and what they want, and then that gives price, and then there's eBay prices that get factored in, and then there's people selling and all sorts of stuff, and there's a whole algorithm to developing data points for things, as well as if you go on eBay and other sites give you a general sense of what these things sell for. So it's a bit rough to have a $4 estimated value. That's a bit painful, but then again, it's also new. And so naturally, that $4 is a guesstimate of an idea of what something can be worth, how much, where it can go, and it's just a starting point here. And in a few months, that data point is obviously going to change as more information comes into the fray of what this thing is actually worth and where it's going. It also doesn't help that Saga is taking a year hiatus. So Saga typically works, they produce 10 issues a year, maybe 11 if we're lucky, and they're taking a year hiatus off. So they just finished their 9th arc, and they'll be back in about 6 months. And so that's where we are. So for a year now, at the end of 6 months, we didn't have Saga. So that's about 10 to 11 issues that we didn't have. It's about an arc. It's about an arc and almost a full another arc that are done, because arcs are 6 issues for those who are unfamiliar with comics. And so that also doesn't help because this isn't in the spotlight. And so when it comes back, if things have changed, then characters get elevated, characters get de-elevated, or pushed down a little bit, naturally this is going to affect value. But at the same time, it also doesn't help with this Pop Funko that this is the basic version, because the Emerald City version, and there's a few other versions of it, are way cooler to have. And so if you had the option of the 3 or 4 that are out there on this Pop Funko in particular, or really between the Emerald City one and the basic one, chances are you're going to take the Emerald City one, because a scrap green, him with green on and not in mourning, is a lot cooler than him, in just traditional gear and cracked screen. So this is him in mourning. Obviously, he does have a cracked screen in this, so that's kind of cool. I didn't even notice that. Learn something new every day, everybody. But he's in mourning in this for the loss of his wife. In this one in particular, is something to keep in mind. And so this is more generic and more available than others are out there, and so that doesn't help it. So given all that should give you an idea that if you're looking for a Saga Pop Funko, this one is right now estimated to be $4. So it's kind of something to keep in mind there with what's out there. And I just think that ultimately everything with Saga right now is that it's in a dip. And so if you're like me, who loves buying things when they're in a dip, or when the supply is greater than the demand, or nobody's looking at Pop Funkos, because if you like to flip things and move things and get good deals, this might be the opportunity to do it, because right now Saga is in a position where it's not necessarily in demand and there's a lot of supply. And if you go to a con and there's 15 of these out there and somebody's asking $15 for it, clearly you should negotiate on it. You should say, well, look, its value isn't that high. You have 15 of them, and so on and so forth. So you could probably do really well and pick this up pretty cheaply on eBay also, and it might be a good move if you're willing to take the risk. And I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't here, just to clarify that, but it could very well be that this thing in the next year or next 2 years kind of goes on an explosion track because nobody's looking at it, and then everybody might want it when things change and when it comes back, and all of a sudden it's building up steam, and there you go, you now have it, and you had it at a price point where then you could sell it at another price that everybody who then wants it buys it at a higher price, and they therefore sell it at another price, or you could sell it at a cheaper price because you bought it at a cheaper price and you can move it a lot quicker. And so that's something to keep in mind with all the Saga ones. And if I didn't say it in any other video, I'm going to say it in this one, is that this is an opportunity where it's not in demand. And there's a risk with what I'm saying to do. and you have to calculate your own position on it. But if nobody's looking at something, but you think it's going to go and become the next big thing in the next year or 2 years, then you might want to be interested in picking it up and buying it and holding on to it and taking it and making money with it, because when nobody's looking at something, it's typically cheaper, but then when everybody's looking at it, then it's not so cheap anymore. And so that's something that you have to keep in mind with this in particular and where it is exactly going. And so that applies to every Pop Funko, by the way. Perfect example is that right now Dragon Ball Z Pop Funkos are really, really popular and everybody's looking at them. And so there's a particular one, the Majin Vegeta, where it's legitly skyrocketing out of nowhere. But then you look at things like and then another example of this that could very well happen with this, because nobody's looking at it right now, nobody was really looking at the My Hero Academia Battle Damage Deku. That thing goes for 50 or 60 bucks on eBay now. And there's going to be a restock with that for the very reason, but even with that restock, it's going to go crazy and it's going to be the restock's going to go fast and it's going to be sold out real quick. And so that's something to keep in mind, that the same stuff can happen with the Saga. And while this is a basic version, people might want it when all of a sudden it takes off again, because nobody knows exactly when something's going to take off and when something's not going to take off. And so that's something to keep in mind with these and what these have and what these go for and what surrounds these. So keep that in mind and definitely pay attention. And that's something that you got to look into and you got to make your own decisions on with these. And I think it's really, really important to understand when nobody is looking at something, because with the Deku in particular, and it's about to happen, if you don't believe me, look on eBay, that nobody was looking at it and everybody was passing it by because Pop Funko was sort of in its infancy. The collector market didn't emerge yet. My Hero Academia didn't emerge yet, and it wasn't big. And then out of nowhere, within the next 6 months, right after that Deku, and everybody who kind of took a chance on it has prospered tremendously. And so that's something to keep in mind. And the same thing could happen to Saga and anything else out there where all of a sudden, if you're not looking, things that fly under the radar sometimes make it to the surface. And for $10, or even if you get it for like $5 or $6, you could then maybe triple your money, and you did really well. And so that's something to keep in mind with the Saga stuff in general. With this one in particular, as well as every single other Saga one, is that the very same thing could happen with Saga, especially considering that it's in an off year right now, and that it's on hiatus. And all of a sudden it comes back and there's a lot of press behind it. You might see the needle move a lot more, and if you buy it today, not saying you should or shouldn't here again, but you might see it triple up out of nowhere. So keep that in mind, and definitely something to keep in mind, whether it's this one or the Lion Cat or an Alana or a Gus, which I'm going to talk about in a few episodes here. Those you might want to start taking a look at. And so I hope this really helps to break down what's out there. And please feel free to take my advice or don't. But one thing that you should do is that even if you take my advice, please do your own research. And please make sure and fact check everything I say about everything I talk about. Because while I think I'm trustworthy and I'm with you on this, because I would not be talking about any Pop Funko that I didn't believe in. And I made several videos breaking down what are good and bad Pop Funkos. And you're going to see that a lot more, whether you should buy them or not. I don't know about this one. And I'm going to state that right on the record here, is I don't know where this one's going, but it does definitely have the potential. And Saga is the type of series that has the potential that very easily we could see these triple from their current value or their current highs or lows, and we could see them go for like 18 to 20 bucks in 2-3 years, especially if Saga plays out the right way and other media venues come into it, which is the trend that's coming into the comic world as of right now. So keep that in mind. And that's all I'm going to say on it, because I think I drilled the point home hard enough right now. But I'm just going to reiterate, feel free to use my affiliate link. Best way how to support it, again, copy the code, click the affiliate link, do all your shopping, check out. If you followed that link and you got the code, you'll get 10% off. It'll activate. So feel free to use that. It's a gift from me to you. And I also get a commission off of it, which helps to support this channel. So everybody wins. You get 10% off. I get some kickback money per se, for lack of a better word here. And that goes back into all this and what I'm doing here with this channel and my website and the podcast. And you benefit as a fan even more. So feel free to use that. And if you're not interested in saving 10%, I was going to force you. Please, you don't save 10% and still go shopping. Totally down for that. But if you're not interested in that, I'm kidding. If you're not into that, feel free to support me by following me on Twitter at PopAnimeComics. Check out the website, PopAnimeComics.com. Facebook is Pop Anime Comics. Podcast is Pop Anime Comics Lounge on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio. Instagram, Pop Anime Comics. Anything that's Pop Anime Comics is mine, unless I owe you money. And in that case, I will ignore you and pretend I don't know you and walk out like I just broke something in a store. But in all seriousness, all that's in the description down below. Feel free to check all that stuff out. And thank you for watching. Again, this is all about education and giving advice, showing trends, talking about Pop Funkos, and providing some form of education so that you have an idea whether you overpay for something or you want a Pop Funko or anything in between there, whether you just want to understand the market, pricing, you're looking to build your collection, you're looking to see what your collection is worth. Again, all this is really meant for education purposes and to really give people an idea of what's out there and what their money is going to, what they have, what they don't have, why things are priced the way they are. And a lot of information was said in this video, and I understand that. But again, it's really to give a thorough understanding and position on why things are priced the way they are, and a lot of background so that you as a viewer and consumer and collector understand what you are getting yourself into, where your money's going, how to spend your money, and what to search for and what is out there when you go on the hunt for these Pop Funkos. So thank you for watching. It's always appreciated, and I cannot wait to continue to explore my collection and provide insight into why things are priced the way they are, their prices, background, and trends surrounding the entire market of Pop Funkos. So have a good one, everybody. Until the next episode.